So here's part two, as promised, my interview with Andy Jacobs. I apologize for the technical difficulties that we had, but I'm still learning this gig. And this is just some more insight into the man, into his history, what he's done, and where he's going. It's really fun. And again, I hope you enjoy as much as I have. Talk to you soon.
Yes. Yes, recording in progress. There we go. The red light is on.
Yes, there we go. Back to the conversation, John.
Back to the Zoom meeting.
Splendid times on the Zoom meeting.
So where were we?
Yeah. Let's see. Shoot. Blame Amy.
Blame Amy. Yeah. So we I think gained a different kind of following here. Like we were being played on like Power 94 and stuff, which was like the pop station. And we were like winning like the Crank It or Yank It competition and stuff like that. And where people have to call in and vote for one song or the other. And we won it 5 days in a row. So we were sent to Crank It or Yank It Heaven. stuff like that. Like our one album that was made was super, like Joe really produced the crap out of it. It was very poppy and rock, sort of kind of Foo Fighters-esque. But
that was Joe from Piggyback Records.
Joe Lockteff from Piggyback Records.
Got it.
And I think we did that in 2005, and then 2006 came around, and we were having lots of trouble dealing with the Lockteffs and Piggyback Records, and I think the majority of the band wanted to break away. Like we had gotten a manager from. He was the founder of a podcast called Insomnia Radio, which had podcasts in basically every major city around the world. And he was our manager. And that was like, and he lived in Santa Barbara, and he wanted to book us on a tour that was like for the Extreme Games tour. And we were going to be like the band that was featured and stuff like that. Like he really believed in us. And he was convincing us to break away from the label, and then the label was trying to sue us for like, and then we were trying to counter sue. Like we got our own attorney from Texas and stuff, and it was just a big shit show. And then I think the deal that was made was that they would get to keep the masters of the album, but Jamal would get to keep the rights to the songs. Soon after that, Mike and Adam quit. Right as we were like breaking away from the label and about to like go on a big tour, like they had just gotten in new relationships, and their girlfriends supposedly were probably convincing them to that going out for 2 months at a time was too much for them, for their relationships, and so they obviously chose their girlfriends. And Adam had a new kid. And he was having a custody battle, so he felt like he didn't really have the freedom to go out and do this. So I think he was the first one to quit, and then Mike followed in his footsteps. And then I was trying to convince Jamal, like, let's just do this, you and me, and go down and re-record the album again. Go down to Santa Barbara and re-record it so that we can at least have that again.
Yeah.
And I think that it just hit him so hard that I think he basically quit music altogether and moved down to Redding, California, and that was really the last we ever heard from him, which is kind of sad because he was such a major talent. And like I've played with so many like supremely talented people in my career that I've been really lucky to like be collaborators with these people and like learn from them. And it's just such a shame to see them just fizzle out when they have so much potential. Yeah. I mean, I wish they were just still doing it.
Got married. Yeah.
Tale as
Yeah.
old as time. Um, uh, so that fizzled out in 2006. In 2007, I got married, and at my bachelor party, uh, Jeremy, I think, or there was a drum set at the bachelor party, and I think I was playing drums, just like I had never really played drums before, and I was just messing around, and Jeremy was there, and he like the next day called me up and said like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy a drum set. You want to start a band?"
Yeah.
And he
Jeremy
wanted me to be
McGee?
the drummer, Jeremy McGee, who was the
Oh.
guitarist who replaced me in Thought Police,
Oh, please.
and become the fifth member. He wanted to play guitar and do his songs with me playing drums. And Dylan from In Arms, he was the
Yeah.
singer. He was the bass player. So we started a band called Sons of Dirt. That we played for quite a few years actually, and made a pretty good album called Shit Witch.
Yeah.
Um,
Great name.
and
Yeah.
that, looking back, that's actually one of the better albums I feel like I've been on. Like it was produced really well by it was the drummer for a band called Shovel Belt that recorded it for us. So that went on probably at least until like 2011, 2012. So I did that for quite a many years. It just so happened at the same time Subliminal got back together with Craig, the drummer from In Arms,
Okay.
and
Yep.
or band, and a guy named Cameron. His last name is spacing on me. I haven't seen Cameron in a long time because he moved to Turkey, I think. But Cameron was the bass player, and he was a great sober musician. Back then, that was saying something. Someone who was actually sober and had a head on their shoulders, because none of us were.
Sure.
But like he was really good at like marketing us and getting us gigs and stuff, and we started out playing Sublime, and it turned into like us covering like from Nirvana to like Rolling Stones to like Motown to just doing all these, to writing our own originals, and that was all happening at the same time as Sons of Dirt. I've never been a one band guy. I've always needed like more than one band to counterbalance, and I think that probably wasn't the best thing in Jeremy's eyes for Sons of Dirt, and I think that kind of fizzled out because I probably didn't have all my eggs in that basket, which makes sense.
Sure.
But Subliminal, like we ended up getting back together, like breaking up, getting back together, getting like probably 2 or 3 times. Last time, and each time we'd record a new album or do like one time when we reformed, it was like around 2015. We did the Blood Sugar Sex Magic album by Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
but made it all like either reggae or ska or dub or punk. Like totally, we completely changed the style of each song.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we started doing a recording project, and then that fizzled out, I think around 2018. So around one of those breaks though, I remember, I should say that Goodbye Dinah did get back together in 2008, I think, which was actually the first time Sons of Dirt broke up. It was like a year after we had got together. Goodbye Dinah started up with Dylan as the bass player. Tyler Moss was our guitarist, and Jason Schmidt was the drummer. And I had made an album with Jason at his house of all new songs of mine, and made an album that I called 27, but it was in Roman numerals, so it was XXVII. And we went on a little bit of touring and playing local shows before that fizzled out in summer of 2009. And then I would say 2011, 2012, Sons of Dirt and Subliminal were like gigging like crazy. Like I would have so many weekends where it would be one show and then having to go immediately to another show. like playing at Perea with Subliminal and having to race across town to Grover's Pizza to play with
Nice.
Sons of Dirt.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time for sure. Very busy. It was the most gigging I had ever done up to that point.
Yeah.
But after that broke up, I again started the habit of writing a song every week, but this time I was recording the song every time.
How were you recording? What rig were you using at this
So
time?
at this point, I had I think it was Cubase in my PC on my desktop, and Jeremy's drum set was in he let me have it at our house. So I would just play a drum part. I would have, this was when I had just had my son Hendrix, and the Subliminal was used to practicing on Thursday nights from like 3 to 8. It was like a 6-hour period. It was something around there. Maybe it was like 3 to 9, but it was every Thursday that they were used to babysitting him. So I had them keep babysitting him, and I just instead used that time to be like, as soon as they picked him up, I'd go get on the drums and just start playing the drum part, and then being like, okay, that was cool, and then I'd start playing a rhythm guitar part over that, just making it up on the spot.
Sure.
With knowing that I didn't have a lot of time, so I didn't have a lot of time to like develop it, and then jumping to the bass, and then jumping to lead guitar, then coming up with vocals and lyrics, and then having it mixed and edited by the time Hendrix was dropped off at around 9 o'clock. So every week I'd have a song that was done, and I did this for probably 6 straight months. So that ended up being a double album called In the Lost that is on Spotify and stuff like that. And it's kind of my favorite album of mine because it was so because there was no real like rehearsal going into it. So much of it was off the cuff that when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, wow, like it sounds like somebody else writing these songs because they were so in the moment. But they're so diverse and they really follow each season. But I gotta say, the reason I quit doing it was because I started getting scared at the fact that I wouldn't remember, I would black out basically during the sessions and not have any memory of what I was doing. And the songs started to get really creepy.
Oh, no way.
Almost like I was trying to become a medium of some kind, and I'm not a religious person, but I do consider myself spiritual.
Sure.
But and I felt like by like going in there and just trying to come up with something on the spot, I was like opening myself up to something. I don't know, channeling something, but I don't know if it was like, and even the lyrics in the songs were like, I'm coming closer, and like, and now I'm sitting on the edge of your bed, and and I was starting to hallucinate and see stuff and not be able to sleep at night. And so I stopped because I was really questioning my sanity at that point. Because near the end, I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like at first, I was maybe starting out with some ideas that I had already rattling around in my head, but by the end of that 6 months, I was really digging deep at the bottom of that creative barrel. And I had no idea it would have those kind of consequences. I've never really gone that deep into it again, but it's definitely it's like one of the parts of my life where it was like a high and a low, 2 extremes at the same time, but it was kind of scary.
And so this was 2008, 2009, somewhere in there?
That one came out in 2013.
Oh, 13.
That's when I was doing that. Yeah, because like 2012, Subliminal and Sons of Dirt were going strong, and I think near the beginning of 2013 is when that stopped.
Okay.
And then I started a band called the Zanti Misfits that was Jeremy on drums, ironically, with me on guitar. Your old bandmate, who was the guitarist in 30 Day Notice? Not Joe, but
Sean.
Sean Limbacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hanging out with him a lot, and he was my lead guitarist. Again, Dylan
Awesome.
was the bass player.
Nice.
And I think Sean ended up quitting because I think we did one gig at Volcanic Theater, and we were like all about putting on this weird sci-fi performance where we were like these aliens and in lab coats and stuff, and we had projection images of like warnings of what you would experience in the show, and like
Yeah.
just really going all out with like the performance art aspect.
Theatrics of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really cool. It was a really cool concept, but Sean quit not soon after that, and then the band just sort of followed suit with that.
Sure.
And then I was kind of left there and like depressed, and that was also right around the time that I got divorced from Hannah, and out of that came the next Goodbye Dinah album, which was called Lovesick, which were all songs that they sound like they're about the divorce, but honestly, the songs were written about Sean leaving the band.
Oh. Oh.
Even though they sound like they're about like a divorce crumbling or a marriage crumbling, but I mean, a band agreement is kind of like a marriage in a way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, after that, I think Subliminal got back together like the next year or so, and that's when we did the Red Hot Chili Peppers thing. And then we did that for a couple of years, made another EP called Six Joints on Wax. That was pretty cool. I think that one is available. Either that or our first album, Rise Up, is available somewhere. I think it's only available on Bandcamp, honestly.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then after that, I was bandless, and so I put out some messages to a few local bands that I knew were getting gigs that were getting paid, and one of them was Juju Eyeball. They were the local Beatles cover band.
Yeah.
And sure enough, within like a month, I got a phone call saying that like their main guitarist was leaving, and they wanted me to try out. So I joined that band, and that we were like gigging a lot. Like I think in the first year, there was a gig in the summer at the Brown Owl where I jumped up on a stool to do a guitar solo. I think it was for Nowhere Man. And I did the guitar solo, and everyone was so dazzled and everything. And then I jumped off the stool, and the stool crumbled as I jumped off it. And I fell on my leg weird, and I ended up breaking my tibia.
Yeah.
And it was we were at the beginning of a 3-hour show, and I still played the rest of the show standing up. I just didn't realize what had happened yet until after the gig, and my knee looked like a catcher's mitt was on it. So the next day I went to urgent care, and sure enough, I had broken my leg and I needed surgery. And that was like at the end of July. And it turned out that the next month, and I had also joined a band called The Color Study that I was drumming for. But so I was in bands all over again, multiple bands. But the next month in August, I had 30 gigs in 1 month, all with a broken leg. All like my leg was up on a stool with a big ice machine with an ice pack around it, and I was all opioided up and in the summer heat with a fan on me, and with just sitting back in a chair playing guitar with a microphone right here, and still playing every gig. I think I had to miss one gig because I had surgery that day, but I had to get right back into it, and so that was crazy.
Yeah. So you started playing that white Les Paul. Was that around that time when you picked that up?
White Les Paul came from Blame Amy. That White Les Paul was actually Jamal's guitar that he let me play during the Blame Amy years. And then when we broke up, he's like, "Hey, can I get that guitar back?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Okay." And so I was like, how much? And so I gave him, he wanted $600 for it. And so I was like, yeah, that's worth it. I'll take it.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
I was like, that was like my guitar at that point, because that's all
Sure.
I played on. And ever since then, that's been like my main,
Right. Yeah.
main baby.
That's a beautiful guitar. Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I've played other Les Pauls too, and none of them have the same kind of bite and feel like that one does.
Yeah.
I mean, even at Abbey Road Studios, I played their Les Paul, and it was like crap compared to mine.
That's cool. Okay, so this is like you're 2018.
2019, I think that was probably 2018 or 2019.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
right before COVID.
right before COVID. Yeah, I think we broke up. So there, the more money that Juju Eyeball would get, the more drama there would be. And ended up like, I was always like the pacifist, just trying, like every time there was drama, I would just pretty much just go away, just walk away and let them. I just didn't want to hear it. But at one gig, like it just blew up, and one of like 2 people quit, and then like the next morning, I was like, "Hey, I think it's this one guy that is causing all the drama. Let's all get back together, and we're gonna fire him." And he, ironically, he was the one that called me initially to be in the band, but he was like kind of such a control freak. He's a lawyer. And so we like took him to work. We had a meeting at Worthy and basically fired him. Told him that we wanted to keep the name, and because he was a lawyer and a control freak, he was like he went out of his way to get counsel to say that like we couldn't do that, and we couldn't have the name and all this stuff, and he was threatening to sue us, and which was all bullshit. Looking like there's no way he could have, but it didn't scare me, but it scared enough of the other band members to be like, I can't get sued, so let's just come up with a different name. And ever since then, so we started a different band called Magical Mystery 4, which is what band we have today. And just got a different bass player. And ever since then, like he has like tried to blackball us from all the different venues, and like saying that like they can't have us, they can't book us if they book them, and just like being just a huge manipulative jerk. So which just proves that we made the right move in getting rid of him. And not having to deal with his bullshit anymore, because like we were much happier after that.
Now you started teaching somewhere here too, isn't that right? Was that
I started teaching probably in 20. I mean, honestly, I think my first lessons that I taught were really sparse. Probably 20. I think it was when I was at the Pinewood apartment still, so it must have been before 2010. Like I remember doing my first lesson. It was like $20 for a half an hour, and this kid wanted to learn like some Iron Maiden song or something, and he came over to my apartment, and I was sweating bullets the whole time. Like I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know how to teach.
I was so nervous because I'd never done that before, and I didn't really believe in myself. And then it would probably be like 1 or 2 a year for a while, and then I think around 2012 I started to teach the School of Rock class at the Cascade School of Music. So that helped kind of build my confidence with that, and I had some private students. And then I think it was around when we got divorced that I quit doing that. And I think it was also because there was a shooting at Bend High, which was the school that I went to, and so I figured I didn't want to be in a school setting anymore. Because that really freaked me out, because there was a school shooting like every week in America at that point. And I didn't like that idea. And I was like the main stay-at-home parent also at that time. So I had to give up my job so that Hannah could work full time. And I was watching Hendrix all the time. But then right after the divorce, I remember I was approached by a guy, his name's Travis Palladino, and he had a company. He was new to town, and he had a company called Music Flow. And the idea was that he would hire teachers, and they would kind of work under him, and he would find the students and then just set you up, basically doing all the hard work. And then he would pay me at the end of every month. And I'm still working for him, and it's like one of the best decisions I ever made, because now I'm able to make like 5 or 6 grand a month just teaching music.
That's incredible. How cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it's the best job ever. And now I'm able to also do private students on top of that, and kind of name my price. And
Sure.
it's like
Yeah.
the more we would do recitals, the more I would be in demand. Is like the School of Rock, basically like the Jack Black. They can
Sure.
teach kids
Yeah.
how to just play whatever song they wanted on whatever instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing that pretty solidly since 2015.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
you know, I catch some of the videos that you put out and stuff like that, and it's like it's really good. You know, it's so fun to see these kids. You know, you can tell that they're well rehearsed. They're really into it, and yeah, it's really neat. That's so cool.
I'm really proud of my students. Like that's probably the highlight of my whole career is seeing what they like. Probably one of the big highlights was teaching an 8-year-old how to play Bohemian Rhapsody note for note on the piano and lead sing it in like 3 30-minute lessons.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then we
insane.
just had to cram it, and he just had so much passion for it that I would show him like one part at a time, and we'd take a video of it, and then he would just digest it and learn it all like that week, because the recital was like that right around the corner, and then he nailed it at the recital. And he was only like 8 years old, and that's insane to me. Like looking back, and I did that. I don't even really know how to play piano that well. I couldn't even do what he did, and the fact that I was able to just by ear sort of piece it together for him, and that he responded, was like a dream come true as a teacher, to be able to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. How neat. Oh, that's so cool. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So Magical Mystery 4.
Yeah.
I can't even say it.
The Color Study also was a band that I was drumming for, that we put out a couple albums that you
Are
can
you guys
find.
still playing?
You know what? I actually, like a couple months ago, I was fired.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which I'd never been fired from a band before, except for when I was hooking up with the guitarist's girlfriend.
Sure.
That was the only other time I got fired.
That'll do it.
That's not what
Yeah.
was happening this time. And honestly, I wasn't even really given I wasn't given a real valid reason why either. So I was just kind of left hanging. They kind of ghosted me. I don't know if it was personality differences or whatever, but I felt like I did a pretty good job in that band, because there was always weird time signatures and stuff that I was always, other drummers like couldn't get, but I was like, I want to sink my teeth into that kind of stuff to really develop my own drumming skills.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun in that band. I really do miss playing with them. And they just played a show last night. I think their first one without me. I don't even know who the new drummer is yet. I was like looking for footage of them, and I didn't see any.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's done.
Sure.
But they half of that band came with me. So I should say, I was at band practice for Color Study sometime early last year, and I remember asking like, "Hey, what if we like booked a session at Abbey Road Studios? Like that must be a thing, right? There must be like a real studio that actually like that, because it used to be that you had to be signed to EMI to record there."
Sure.
But now, I mean, they'll take anybody, and sure enough, I just and they were like, "No, that'll never happen. Like that's too far fetched. Like no one does that." And I think I just got really stoned one night and decided to I was just like, what should I do? And on my phone, and I just went to their website and just started like scrolling and looking at the different studios that they had, and then I saw one little bubble that said "Inquire here." So I clicked on it and just happened to ask like, "Hey, like what's your rate if I wanted to record at this studio?" And blah blah. And just that little spark just started a conversation, and just the ball started getting rolling. And then I just never was like, "Oh, this is probably too crazy, I need to stop." I just let it keep going.
Yeah.
And to the point where I was like, I want to do these dates next year. I booked like October of the next year, because so it must have been 2 years ago that I started thinking of this, because it was like more than a year out. And at first they were
Right,
like, no,
right.
October is totally booked. Sorry. And I was like, no, October next year of 2022. And they were like, yeah, that's really far out, but I guess we can hold on to those for you until someone else comes along who actually is going to pay. You know? So I held on to those dates for like months and months and months, just thinking like, wow, now I should probably write some songs. So I would like for years after my divorce, I would go on hikes along the Deschutes River, with just one leg at a time, until the point where I had done the whole river in the whole county, like 80 miles of river. And when I would go on those hikes, I would get musical ideas and I would just spit them out into my phone, basically, just humming riffs here and there. Or I'd be at home, like stoned on the couch, just playing guitar riffs. And if something came up, I'd record it on my phone with the voice memo app. Until I had I basically had 5 years worth of material, of little snippets here and there. So after I basically booked this recording session at Abbey Road Studios, which was 2 days at Studio 2 and 2 days in Studio 3, which, if you don't know Abbey Road in London, that's where the Beatles recorded just about everything, and Pink Floyd recorded just about everything in the 70s. And Studio 2 is where the Beatles did most of their stuff, and Studio 3 is where Pink Floyd did most of their stuff, along with other bands like Radiohead and like Elliott Smith, and like, I mean, any huge band that, I mean, those two studios are kind of like mecca for any musical artist. So I made sure to book those ones, even though it was like $5,000 a day. And I didn't have it close to that much money, but I just figured it would work out somehow. So, and if it ended up not happening, like, what's the harm? You know, like,
Sure.
I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to owe them the money if I don't go.
Right.
So, I just started sitting with, I think it was over the year of 2021 that every month I decided I was going to write a song once a month to have 12 songs. And I would sit with my girlfriend Stephanie on the couch, and I would just like play snippets of the old stuff on my phone and ask her like, what's the name of this? And I would just have her name them.
Do you like this?
Yeah, basically, like, do you like this one? Should we keep this one? And she would tell me what name, what image would conjure up in her head, and what random name, and to identify it. So through that, like, those started to culminate into like 12 different pieces that I could put them together. Usually like 3 or 4 different parts that I would say like, oh, this part could go with this part, and mix and match and all that. So and then once a month I would sit, it was usually the last day of the month, we would procrastinate all the way. It would be like 10 o'clock at night, like on the 31st or something, and be like, we better write the song. And so I would just sit there, and I'd be playing the riff and asking her like, what are the lyrics? And she actually wrote more than half the lyrics for the album, and I have to give her like half the credit for pretty much all the songs.
That's awesome.
On this one. And so she was a major collaborator. And so it was really fun to kind of be able to do that with someone else, because it felt like it wasn't so much me and my ego like clouding everything. Like I could see it through someone else's filter. And she's like totally into like punk rock of the 90s, like NoFX and Bad Religion. And so half the songs are very much that kind of punk rock, like really fast, like really fast drum beats and stuff. Like one song is trying to emulate Bad Religion, one song's trying to emulate NoFX, one song's like Pennywise, and just like trying to like pay tribute to like the 90s punk bands that I loved as well. And so after that, the songs were all written, and I was like more and more serious every month about doing this, and still the color study people were like, that's not gonna happen. And I remember like I had such audacity during this time for some reason. I contacted. So growing up, there was a band that was regional called Floater.
Yeah.
That I loved their albums growing up in the '90s. Like they were really like aggressive and psychedelic at the same time, and just really good vocals, really good songwriting, and all the songs were written by the bass player and Rob Wynea. And I'd met him a couple times opening for him acoustically at Silver Moon and stuff like that. And so, I just felt like I texted him over Facebook a messenger and just asked like, hey, I have a session booked at Abbey Road Studios, and I'm gonna make this like album that's like aggressive and psychedelic, and I thought of you. And sure enough, he answered me back like, that sounds fun, but you'll have to, but he said you'll have to go through my label, which I thought was like him just passing me off, like it's
Talk to
really
my
happening.
agent.
Yeah.
Talk to my agent. Yeah.
But sure enough, I went through his label, and they were like, and then I remember the email that I got back. I was at Legoland in San Diego, like while the kids were on some ride. I remember getting this email like, okay, we've like figured out like how much we're gonna ask for $5,000 for him to do these sessions, and here's what we need, and we'll bang out a contract and stuff. And I was just like, what? Like, this is actually something that I can do? Like, he's actually going to play bass on my record? So then it was like, it was on. It was like, I have to do this now. Like, I have to follow through this. So I think at that point I had contacted Jared again, my old Thought Police Subliminal drummer, who had moved to Berkeley or moved to Massachusetts, I should say. He went to Berkeley College of Music when Thought Police broke up in 2001 or 2002. And he was living there ever since. So it had been like almost 20 years. I hadn't even really seen him that much. But I'd missed, he was like my best friend around then. So I figured like, why not reach out to him and see if he wants to play at Abbey Road? And sure enough, he said yes right away.
Right.
Which I asked other people too, and they were just like, I remember Jeremy, I asked him, and he was like, no, I can't afford to do that right now. I got family stuff to deal with. And sure, I mean, I think most normal people would say that. So at that point I had Rob on board and I had Jared on board, and I was sending them demos of the songs and kind of letting them write their own parts, and which I had never done before. I had always been like the mastermind, like I need to do all the parts myself, but I was really kind of freeing to let them, like, let Jared come up with his own parts. Then he would send me a recording of what the drum parts were, and then I would send him some notes back of what I was looking for, and then he did a really good job. It was like only one time back and forth, and for him to solidify his parts.
Wow.
And then I sent him to Rob and like, here, you like, can you come up with something over this now? And like, me and Rob only practiced once before, maybe twice. I think I went to his house once, and then he came over to the color study studio once, one morning to play for about an hour, which we didn't even touch each song. And like at some point before, like once we were actually solidifying this London trip, they were both like, we should play a live show there too. So I went to I tried to book a gig at the one place that both of them said, which was the Fiddler's Elbow, which was like it's kind of like growing up here, we had Players Bar and Grill, which was like the place where local bands would play. That's like the Players of London.
Okay.
Where it has a really cool sound guy, and it's really professional and everything, but it's also accessible to local. So they threw us on a bill with like 3 other bands, and before we left, like it was probably a month before we left, 3 of the color study members were like, okay, you're actually doing this, we want to go too. So
did they go?
They did.
Oh, nice.
Scott, who's like the mastermind of color study, he ended up being like the associate producer, so he'd be like behind the board, like helping everything move along.
That's great.
And Melissa, she was the keyboardist. She ended up playing some organ
on the organ that Pink Floyd actually did for Dark Side of the Moon and other stuff. And Steven, he played a guitar part, and he was kind of the guitar tech. But so then we all went to London and played the show at the Fiddler's Elbow, which we live streamed. So there's a link to that as well that you can check out. And
Awesome.
honestly, when we showed up at the venue, that was the first time we were all in the room together. And we rehearsed in the green. We played it together in the green room while other bands were sound checking. And that was the first time we were actually practicing the songs that we were about to play in like an hour.
Right.
We practiced through the set with not even plugged in, just putting our instruments on and just playing them, barely able to hear them.
Yeah.
And then we played the show, and then the next morning we were in Studio 2.
Wow.
Just boom, and we were really learning the songs kind of as we were going, just doing take after take after take until I felt like all the parts were there, and then we move on to the next song.
Sure.
And it actually moved kind of fast. We did it so fast, we actually put songs back in that I had cut because I didn't think we'd have time. And so I was actually like Rob. We played a song Rob had never even heard before. That's called "If You Could See." That I was sitting there like putting chords on paper for him and then giving them to him, and then they could see me in the isolation booth, and they were out in the studio and just like trying to do it all on the spot. And that was kind of like one of the highlights of my life.
Oh
that
yeah.
Of like just trying to do it all in the moment, like just like the Beatles did.
That's
like
incredible.
completely unrehearsed.
So is that the way you guys recorded the whole entire thing?
Yeah, we did all the drums and bass tracks in Studio 2, and we spent 2 days there doing that, and we had like time left over at the end of Studio the second day, so we were like messing around and just like coming up with, like, we did clap tracks where we had everyone's like significant others and everyone just getting there and all trying to get together and do clap tracks and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, let's all just play weird instruments and, and do that stuff. And like, just like playing all the different crazy famous pianos, like playing and just having like a session of us playing Hey Jude. And it's just like,
my God.
yeah.
Wow.
And like, just during the lunch break, like I got on the drums and Jared was on the guitar and we were playing Beatles songs, and that was really cool. And then the next 2 days we did all the overdubs in Studio 3, which was fun, but it was nerve-wracking because I felt like I was under the clock. Then I had this laundry list of things that I had to do to get done, and like we got
Break out guitar part. Do vocals.
Up to like the last 3 minutes available on the last day. Like we were like putting stuff through their plate reverb, which their plate reverb is famous because it's like an actual room on the roof with these big plates that they put the sound through, and we were like figuring out what should go through the plate reverb, and then and then me and my girlfriend went to France for like a week and a half after that. And so now we're at the point where I brought the mixes or the copies home, and I worked for months on editing everything, getting all the right takes in the right order, and I only knew of one guy that I wanted to mix the album, and his name is Ryan Green. I wanted him because he was the guy who mixed all of the Fat Records albums in the 90s. And if you don't know Fat Records, they did No Effects, did Lagwagon, Strung Out. I mean, anything that was on that label, which was kind of like the innovator of punk rock in the 90s, like bringing metal and punk rock together and making it sound like super polished. And he was like the guy responsible for all that. So I stalked him on Facebook, and I was like sending him messages and stuff, and not hearing anything for months until Christmas Day. Like that night, he was like, "Hey, let's have a chat about me mixing this," and so sure enough, I got him to say yes for $5,000. And
that's the magic number.
And he's been working on the mixes diligently, like doing way more than is called for. for what I was paying him, like really putting his own, like kind of producing and like taking creative freedoms with it and stuff. And I think it was today that I'm or maybe a couple days ago, he sent me the last song finally. And now I just like a few hours ago sent him like a list of just touch-ups that I want him to do.
Yeah.
But he just got COVID for the first time.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's almost done being mixed, and then I'm gonna have it mastered by the same person who mastered all his albums, and I'm gonna have vinyls made and everything, and
Yeah.
and we'll see what goes from there, and see if we can
Wow.
like get on some tour or something, and
Yeah.
make some music videos, and try to actually see if I can like get a house in Malibu.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know, like, but I mean,
End goal. Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's like the whole cliche of like reach for the stars or follow your dreams, you know, and it's like I really
Yeah,
did
do
like
it.
this. I felt like
Yeah.
this is the first time I really did that, and just on my own audacity, and it's all paid off like in
Wow.
spades. And
Yeah.
anyone who believed in me in doing it is like, they come along for the ride, and it's just like so crazy that it's at this point already, and
Yeah,
what
yeah.
what it could possibly do. I don't know if it'll be successful, but at this point, like the mixes are sounding like unbelievable. And so I just sent them to Jared like a couple hours ago. So he just got to hear them for the first time. And
Oh,
his
that's so
drums
cool.
especially are just like insanely aggressive, and just like right in your face, and just like
Wow.
nothing I've ever heard, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that
Oh
brings us
my
to now.
God. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
it only took 2 hours to go through my
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
great.
how about you, Jesse? Let's hear about you.
No, enough about me. Enough about me. No, that is so cool, Andy. Oh my God. So, I mean, you know, potentially within like the next few months, there might be a release on that, or
Yeah, and it's under the name Goodbye Dinah. So and it right now the album is tentatively titled Lava Meets Water, because of the hikes that I did that were a lot of along the river. It was lava flows against the river, and I just remember thinking that back then. And it's just about the dichotomy of like punk rock versus psychedelic, and it's all about that the two coming head to head, and that's kind of the theme of the album.
Wow.
So yeah, I hope
my God.
it'll be in stores soon.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I can't wait, man. That's so good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously then, you know, the next thing, you know, what's next? That potentially house in Malibu, sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And a house in London, and yeah, I'll but yeah, well, we'll have to do one thing at a time first. I've got to be patient.
Yeah.
Got to make some good music videos. I think that's going to be the key. And I'm trying to get some animators to really help me level up with those. But that's got to find some investors.
Yeah.
For something like that.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much. I mean,
thank you, Jesse. That was a blast.
Yeah. What a great story. I love just learning about, you know, all of that history. You know, I've known you for, God, you know, forever, it feels like. And
yep, we go back a long way.
Yeah. And I just, you know, I never knew that history of, you know, you growing up and, you know, playing songs in your room there, and, you know, cranking rage albums and stuff like that. It's great. It is.
Fuck yeah.
It's so neat to see where you are now. And yeah. Thanks for sharing that story, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, and let's catch up soon. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, bud.
All right.
Thanks.
Talk to you later, brother.
See you, man.
All right, bye.